We decided to clarify some points regarding the VAT law, and here we are in the MBH office, and we have Jed Shalak with us. He's professional accountant and tax specialist as well. And me, I'm Kristina Nichaeva, the legal consultant of MBH Advocates. So here we have 10 important points regarding the VAT law. Lots of people, they got shocked with the implementation of the new law, and actually they don't know what to do. So we decided to clarify the most important points, and let us start from the beginning. Jed, what is this VAT?
Christina, the VAT is not a new tax. It's a tax which was developed in France in 1954. It's implemented in over 160 countries. It's viewed as a very effective way of collecting taxes because it's based and paid on by the consumer. It's levied on the goods and services at each step of the production. There are a number of key elements in the VAT or the GST. These are the tax positions, the tax timing, and where the destination of the tax. We'll talk about these things at a later time. It's a tax which is levied, which has a number of components to it, and it will be implemented in the GCC countries in the 1st of January 2018.
So what do you think, what UAE will earn from these taxes? How much approximately?
Approximately, they are 2%, they're expecting to raise around 2% of the GDP. The UAE government is budgeting for around $12 billion, so they need to, so it's a very serious tax, it's quite a lot, and it's an important component of the budget in 2018. I know Saudi Arabia is even more ahead of us with regards to the implementation of VAT and GST. So the Dubai and the UAE and the GCC that we know are going to change drastically over the next year.
Sounds good, sounds good. So when VAT is actually be implemented, and when the company needs to register, because there are lots of opinions online. Some people, they say, no, hey, we will just wait for 2018. Somebody said, no, we already lost the time, we should register in October.
Sure.
So just tell us what we should do.
Sure. Well, the VAT will be implemented officially in GCC countries 1st of January 2018. You need to register if your turnover is in excess of 150 million. You need to register by the 30th of October, which has passed already.
Okay.
If your turnover is between 10 to 150 million, the guidance is that you need to register by the 30th of November, by the end of November. However, for all companies, they must register by the 4th of December 2017.
Okay.
So this is the guidance that we're given. So it's very important for people to be ready for this new tax and ensure that they are prepared in all facets to welcome this new tax.
Okay, so from the legal perspective, the last timing for the registration is 4th of December,
4th
right?
of December 2017. Very important, that this date is very important. It's critical for all businesses to adhere to this date.
Let us go forward. What about the tax services? As we know, some items should be taxable, some of them will be exempted, and some of them will be zero rated. Let us just briefly clarify these points, because some people they don't understand, especially the one who are coming from countries where they don't have tax.
Sure. Well, Christina, before we start, so all companies with turnover over 375,000 need to register by the 4th of December 2017. If your turnover is between 187,500 and 375,000, then you have a voluntary registration option. With regards to the VAT, there are really three categories that you need to worry about. There are the exempted items. Exempted items are items such as residential properties, such as certain financial products, such as life insurance. These items will have zero VAT. More important than all that is the companies that are dealing with these with these facilities will not be able to claim an input tax credit. So all payments they make with regards to these products, they can't get the input tax credit back. The other component is a zero-rated products. A zero-rated products, it means there are zero VAT amount levied onto it, and the company can claim all input tax credits for it. An example of that could be educational services. So there's schools, you might have zero-rated VAT. However, the school can claim all payments relating to the VAT. So if the school, for example, they're charging zero rates on all their tuition fees, all the expenses that the school will pay, they can claim a VAT on it.
What about the food? What about the food?
The food, according to the guidance, is there are 100 types of foods that are exempted. We haven't had an explicit listing of the exempted foods.
But let us say some milk items.
Yes, we expect that the essential foods will be exempted for the purposes of VAT.
Essential food, give some
for example, bread. We expect milk, dairy products. But however, these are guidances that we're getting. We're not certain for sure that this is going to occur.
So these items will be exempted?
These items will be exempted.
Okay.
Now it's important to also note that even, and it's a tax point, even though industry might be exempted, all the suppliers for that industry for that industry is zero rated. All the suppliers for that industry does not mean that they're all zero rated. So for the school, even though the school is zero rated, it doesn't mean that the suppliers of the school products will also be zero rated. Mm-hmm. So this is a very important point. So if you're dealing with an industry that's zero rated or exempted, it does not mean that every single supplier in this industry is zero rated.
Okay, so it depends about the type of the business.
Definitely.
But generally speaking, according to the law and the regulations that already we can observe right now, we have these three groups. So it's very important. The items that has to be governed by the tax law. So you have to pay tax in amount of 5% from the income, and also we have zero rated items.
Yes.
And we have exempted items like we said food and some technical
financial products, residential properties
what about
exempted.
Cars, jewelry?
Cars, no. Jewelry for investment purposes, gold and platinum and all those things for investment purposes are zero rated. Mm-hmm. Exports to countries outside the GCC are zero rated. Commercial properties, however, we said residential property is exempted. Commercial property will have a VAT levied on it.
So if you're earning on the rent, you have a business to earn money from the lease, commercial lease, you will have to pay tax. But if you just provide your apartment, private apartment, residential apartment in rent, you will not pay tax.
Correct. Christina, it's important to note that the VAT is levied onto the consumer. So the last person to pay the VAT will be the consumer. So that's why it's a consumer-based tax. So it's paid by the consumer. So we are all tax collectors. As business owners, as business operators, we are all tax collectors for the government. And that's why, the advice I give to all the clients is please be prepared, because every business in the GCC is now a tax collector. It's the onus of proof is on you to ensure that the taxes you're collecting for the government are given to the government, and the correct amount of taxes that's collected for the government is given to the government.
Right. Okay. So as we know, actually the procedure to enter this VAT is the registration.
Yes.
So definitely, you have to make the steps to register your company. What is the procedure to start? We have some preparing procedure in VAT, like you have to manage your accounting and everything, or
Sure.
What we can suggest from the accounting point.
Sure. Well, look, from an accounting point, I think it's important to note that the VAT is going to change the way we do accounting. Your chart of accounts is going to change. The way you allocate amounts to your various accounts in the chart of accounts is going to change. So it's going to have an impact on your accounting system, definitely. But it'll also impact other areas of the business. It'll impact the suppliers. It'll impact who you're buying from. It'll impact the sellers you're selling to. You need to change your all your bills, all your supplies. So there's all your collateral needs to be changed. Your contracts needs to be changed.
Right.
It's going to impact the business in all facets, and that's why we advise businesses to start preparing for the VAT now.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
no better time to start preparing for the VAT than now.
For example, if you have like drafts of your contract with your suppliers, it's very important, to review these drafts. And starting from 2018, when you will enter a new relations with your suppliers, be sure that tax is inside, so you add this point in your new draft, because we suggest not to use the old drafts from 2017. Definitely. And just prepare yourself for 2018 and the VAT implementation.
Definitely.
Definitely. It means you have to prepare your business, you have to prepare your accounting system. Definitely. You have to prepare your drafts and everything.
Even your HR contracts. I mean, if you're giving commission to your staff, if it's falling outside the parameters of your employment contract, that needs to be revisited, because that could be levied, that could be impacted by the VAT.
But it's mostly for the free zones. What do you think?
No, the VAT will be implemented. The guidance that we're receiving is the VAT is going to be implemented in all free zones and mainland companies.
Okay.
However, gated free zones will be outside the scope of the VAT. Gated free zones are like JAFZA, DAFZA, where they are more like transit shipping, or they're not sending goods into the UAE or to the GCC.
So they're just outside.
Yeah.
Because according to the federal law, like if you are a labor, you have a basic salary and you don't have to have commissions officially by the labor law. But though if you have, for example, free zone company, and you have some employees, I don't know, some people who are doing for you job, and they have commissions or something like this, then you have to be sure that the relations between your company and these people, they are also governed by the tax law.
There could be potentially a VAT implication. So let's say, Christina, your company gives my company a commission. That will have VAT implications, for example. But with regards to the staff, any payments of the commissions could have an implication with regards to
Okay, so commission is also inside.
Definitely.
Okay.
I mean, since we're talking about the impact of the VAT on the businesses and the various facets of the businesses, an example of we always get is what happens if a supplier provides a product to a seller that's not registered for VAT. In this case, the VAT paid to the supplier will impact the cost of goods of the product, and therefore it will impact the profit margin. And it means that the person who's selling the product, because he's not registered for VAT, he's not capable of collecting VAT. So he's not capable of collecting VAT, nor is he capable of claiming the input tax credit as VAT.
Right.
So it's going to impact the cost of it.
Unfortunately.
And Christina, another thing is it's very important to have a consultant that understands VAT, that understand the concept of VAT. I mean, I had a real estate agent call me, a client called me today, saying the real estate agent wants to impose a VAT on his contract today. And I said, can you give me the parameters of this scenario? He said, well, look, I've signed the contract today. I'm making a payment next week. And he's saying, no, you need to add the VAT onto that amount. I said, you can't do that, because the tax point, and that's a very important concept of the VAT, the various tax points. The tax point of that contract is before the start of VAT.
Yeah.
So there should be no implications, VAT implications. So please consult with a proper professional company in order to get the correct advice.
It's better.
Yes.
Okay, one more important point is about the responsibility, the penalties. And as we know from the VAT regulation, that the amount of penalty can be from 10,000 dirham and up to 50,000 dirham.
Correct.
So we expect that if you will breach some tax conditions, for example, you will not get a report, you will not report about the tax, and of course you will not send it in the right time, you might have a penalty.
Correct.
This is right. I just add.
Well, it's not only it's a penalty. It's following the as you. I mean, that's your specialty. It's a following. It'll be following the contract laws of the GCC. So it'll be.
This is administrative penalty.
That's correct.
But also, for example, like a separate point, and the most important, especially from our observation from the legal point, and I think this is one of the most serious things, that if you make a tax evasion, like you are trying to make some actions to avoid paying tax at all. We are not talking about delay. We are not talking that you missed the time, or like you did not provide the information in 15 days.
You got 28 days.
28 days, yeah. But you are constantly trying to avoid paying taxes. Here you have not administrative responsibility.
Correct.
You will go by the criminal law. And of course, you will get like a jail term, unfortunately, together with financial responsibility.
Correct.
So we are not talking right now about the fine in 10,000 dirham. No, it will be jail term for the manager of the company, and not only for all responsible people. So, for example, if the accountant was inside of the procedure and he was acting, he made some actions together with the manager and other people to avoid paying tax, he will also go to jail. So it's very serious point. Together with financial responsibility, we are talking about like up to 5 times like a tax avoided amount.
Yes.
So for example, if you should pay to the government let's say
100,000,
yeah, and you are constantly doing some actions to hide this amount, so you will pay to the government up to 500,000 dirham as a fine, plus you will have to pay tax.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, and you will be in jail. So this is very important point.
And closure of the business.
Yeah,
also.
Definitely. They will block the company for the court procedure, and after maybe also I think they might use deportation as well. We don't know, because there is no implementation of these things right now, but we might predict, because all the financial crimes in UAE, they might be connected with the deportation as well. And from the legal perspective, as we know, only the court judgment will be able to put this responsibility
Correct.
as a jail term, and also the fine on the people. So that's why you have to be careful, and we are expecting also from the legal perspective that they might make a new department, so like a new courts who will be studying the cases, because it's mostly financial crime. Correct. So the government has to be seen, and somebody has to prove that really from the accounting perspective there was a crime. So it's very important point, and I think very like.
And that's what it's very important to have accountants that have expertise in VAT and taxes, because I mean in this case the cheapest accountant is not necessarily the best accountant. And therefore it's good to find people with good expertise and who've got a good understanding of the tax regime. Yeah. And I think that's where we come in.
Definitely. Okay. Another very important point is about not every company has like accounting department. Sometimes companies, they have only one accountant who is running all the business, all the income and spending, etc. So I think people has to prepare their accounting and accounting department, and maybe some of them, if it's a huge business, they might have an audit, let's say.
Correct.
Yeah, this is the most important.
They
I
need
think,
to do audit. So basically what we do is that there is a training that we're offering currently with regards to the VAT to ensure that the accountants are trained, but also with regards to the audit. When we go out, when a client comes to us, we make sure that we visit them on a monthly basis to review their invoices and their bills to ensure that it's compliant as per the VAT, and then we lodge for them. I mean, lodgement, we expect it's going to be quarterly, and we'll talk about that later on. But so we audit to make sure that everything is correct and proper, and that's a very important point. You don't want to leave it till the last minute and realize that we didn't do it properly. So very, very important to ensure that it's spot on.
Yeah. Register your company, registration, so who should make this registration? You can do it on your own being a manager, or you have to go to the tax agent. As we know from the tax law, actually you can always make the registration yourself if you are able to do it. Being a manager is already like a green light for you to register your company on your own, or somebody who has a legal right to do it, like some other representative on behalf of the manager and so on.
That's very true, Christina. I just want to add to that in that currently there's no such thing as tax agent in UAE. So the registration for tax agent starting next year. So there are tax consultant, VAT tax consultants and reclaim services, and that's currently the highest available classification for companies. Furthermore, Christina is 100% correct in saying that managers can register for VAT. This is undoubtedly. However, the structure of the VAT, especially if you have a corporate structure that's a bit unusual, and when it comes to grouping, you're better off discussing it with an expert who knows what's going on, because there might be some benefits ensuring that you group your number of companies, if you have a number of businesses in various jurisdictions, in order to get the maximum tax benefit for your company.
Right.
Furthermore, in order to ensure that your cash flow is not impacted by this new VAT. So the way we register and the way we structure the registration, we definitely look at our client to ensure that they're getting the best advice they can.
It's always right. I think we should also clarify this point about zero rated tax. As we know, as lots of people, they got concerned. Like some of them, they say, no, this kind of business will be not in the tax, you don't need to pay anything. Other they say, no, it will be taxable. So zero rated tax from the legal perspective is something that you pay, but after you will get it back.
Correct. When you do your VAT return, you will get it back.
Yeah, so it means the list of the zero rated taxes and the items under this list has to be paid, but after you should take this money back. So this is the most important point. And in this list, in this group, we have the items, you can just number it again.
Yeah, there are things like education, there are things like investment in gold, there are things like exports outside the GCC, there are things that there's a number, it's a long list of items. So anything that's not exempted or zero rated will have a VAT applicable to it. And we get a lot of questions saying, why aren't they listing all the items with VAT? According to the tax law, and as you know, the onus of proof is on the taxpayer, not on the tax department. So with regards to that, it means that if the item is not listed as exempted or is not listed as zero rated, it's implicitly listed as a VAT item.
Okay. It sounds good and really important before you are going to pay something to check the list or to get a proper consultation in regards of the exempted zero rated taxes and tax governed items. Also, I think another important point is about the languages. Some people usually in daily life they forget that official language is Arabic in UAE, because we have so many foreigners that sometimes people they are coming like, why we need to make translation. So we just, I think it's important to clarify that according to the tax regulation, the official language for the registration and for the appliance of documents is Arabic. So according to the article, actually you have to translate all the papers into Arabic. But as we know, according to the procedure right now, you might find the English version
Correct.
online.
Correct.
And also some important things like declaration of your profit and your balance.
The financials.
Yeah,
and all
financials.
financials are in English.
Can be in English.
Correct. Thus far, all the registration we've done are in English. So we are fortunate in the company that we have bilingual. We're fluent in Arabic and fluent in English. So we're very lucky to be able to do that. The VAT lodgement has to be in Arabic in accordance to the law. It has to be done in Arabic, but the registration so far has been in English.
Yeah, so it's important to be careful in this point because according to the law, if to be strict enough, you have to apply everything in Arabic. But some things the government might accept in English. For
Correct.
example, maybe bank statement or this declaration certificate.
Yes.
It might be accepted in English, but if to be strict enough, you have to translate everything in Arabic. So you have to be just aware about this. So I think we discussed the most important points about the upcoming law, and people can have at least some clarification. In the end of our discussion, just for the information and for the guidance of people, just want to repeat some short cuts. For example, the most common question, like, my salary is in the VAT law, should I pay? The answer is no.
No, of course not. It's outside scope of the VAT.
Of course, no. What about the free zones? So free zones, they are not governed in the same way by the law.
Yes, gated free zones are outside the scope of the VAT in accordance with the guidance that we're receiving, and the other free zones will have VAT implications.
Yeah.
So you do need to register. Even the with regards to the 375,000 turnover, a lot of companies will fall within that category. But even the companies that are not making profit, it's important to note that it's not just turnover, it's taxable supplies, which means if the company is buying goods with 375,000, they will still be caught by the need to register for VAT.
Yeah, right.
So it's not just the turnover, and that's why it's very important to talk to a proper tax consultant to ensure that you're getting the best advice.
Yeah, right. And you have to pay tax when you receive the money, when you receive the income by invoice.
They're using accrual system for the accounting. However, there is a number of tax points that you will need to look at. So, for example, a prepayment could be caught by the fact that the receipt of money is a tax point. So it's not as clear cut as it seems, but it's good to get a tax advice, someone to give you tax consultation in order to ensure that.
Right, people.
Christina, I just want to add one more point. Please register by the 4th of December for all businesses, very important. And the second point I want to make is that we are all now tax collectors for the GCC government. This is what the tax VAT is. So we need to make sure we do it properly. Before, there was no accountability over the financials. They had a bit of liberty in classifications of items in the financial statements. That will change. The new GCC regime, the new VAT regime in the GCC will ensure that everyone is adhering to proper accounting standards. So it's going to be a very different GCC in 2018. Very exciting times. And there's two things we can't avoid: death and taxes.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Be careful, be on the safe side of the law and your rights. And thank you so much for attention. Jed Shalak and Christina Ichaeva with the help of MBA Shataki.